It's funny how quickly loyalty turns into a liability. One minute, you're the guy who's always first in and last out, fixing problems nobody sees and putting out fires before anyone smells smoke. The next, you're a betrayal, all because you dared to want more than a pat on the back. Name's Ryan Chen. I'm 34 years old. Until 5 days ago, I was the senior operations analyst at Calaton Dynamics, a mid-sized logistics firm trying to act like a Fortune 500 player. I'd been there 4 years, long enough to learn that hard work makes you dependable, but not valuable. At least not in the eyes of someone like Melinda Harper. Melinda was my boss, VP of Ops. Polished, ruthless, always the smartest person in the room, as long as no one else was talking. She had this glass-walled office right in the middle of our floor, like a queen perched in her fishbowl, watching over her kingdom of cubicles. She liked things quiet, orderly, obedient. I made sure they were. I ran the back-end workflows that kept the company breathing. I reorganized our distribution model when a client pulled out of Ohio. I caught a data error in Q2 projections that would have tanked our contract with Armstrong Freight. And I trained the kids she kept hiring straight out of college, the ones who thought spreadsheets were magic and Slack was a personality. I asked for a raise 3 times. Once after I saved the Armstrong account. Once when I took over project management for the East Coast team after Marcus bailed, and again after I onboarded 3 new hires during a hiring freeze. Every time, she said the same thing. Let's revisit this next quarter. Right now, the budget's tight. But the budget was never too tight for her. She threw $500 dinners at Westwood Grill to schmooze minor clients. Flew first class to a 2-day conference in Toronto that could have been a Zoom call, and gave her 24-year-old nephew, an actual adult child, a management title, and a corner office after 2 months of clicking around Salesforce. Still, I stayed. I convinced myself it was just temporary, that maybe if I worked harder, stayed visible, didn't complain, she'd eventually see what I was worth. That's the trap of being useful. You think being indispensable is the same as being respected. It's not. It was my girlfriend, Nina, who finally said what I wouldn't. Ryan, she's never going to give you what you deserve. You're convenient for her. You're a tool she doesn't want to pay more for. She said it quietly, like it might shatter something in me. It did. I didn't do anything drastic. Just polished my resume one night after Nina went to bed. I didn't send out a dozen applications, just one. A company called Graybridge Partners was hiring for a director-level role. Bigger title, better pay, real upward mobility. I figured they'd ghost me like most companies do. 2 days later, I had a voicemail from their recruiter. "We'd love to chat," she said. I scheduled an intro call for Friday morning, took it in my car, parked outside the office. By Monday afternoon, HR called me in. Not Melinda, HR. The kind of meeting that feels like a dentist appointment no one explained. The HR manager, soft-spoken and visibly uncomfortable, said someone had forwarded them a screenshot of my LinkedIn activity. Apparently, I'd clicked Open to Work without realizing it was visible. By Tuesday, Melinda summoned me to her office. The fishbowl. I stepped inside, and she was already pacing behind her desk, arms crossed, mouth tight. "Sit," she said. I didn't. She stared at me like I'd spit in her coffee. "Why didn't you come to me first?" I blinked. About what? About looking for another job. About this. She gestured at her monitor, where I could see my own resume on LinkedIn, bright and polished. "After everything I've done for you, this feels like a betrayal." That word hit harder than I expected, not because it hurt, but because of how deeply she believed it, as if she had been the one doing me favors, as if years of unpaid overtime and frozen salaries were gifts. I stayed calm. I'd already mourned this job. I didn't think I needed permission to explore my options. She didn't respond to that. Just picked up her phone and told someone, probably security, to disable my badge access. "I think it's best if today is your last day," she said. "Clean out your desk now. And Ryan, leave your laptop on the counter." I looked around her office one last time. The glass walls, the fake eucalyptus in the corner, the untouched stack of leadership books on her credenza. Then I looked at her. "Good luck, Melinda." I left without saying goodbye to anyone, didn't slam any doors, didn't fire off a farewell email, just walked out with my backpack slung over one shoulder and 4 years of lessons heavy on the other. Funny thing is, I didn't feel angry. I felt free, like something I hadn't noticed was crushing me until it finally lifted, like I'd been loyal to a version of the company that never existed. And as I stepped into the elevator, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what came next. I didn't go straight home. I left my box of desk junk in the trunk, loosened my tie, and just walked. No destination, no plan. I drifted through the downtown grid until I found a bench across from a construction site where a new Calleton branch office was supposed to open next quarter. I'd helped plan that rollout, the timeline, the vendor coordination, the data infrastructure. And now I was on the outside looking in, watching cranes move steel beams, like none of it had ever involved me. The skyline was turning gold, that kind of dusky cinematic glow that makes things look softer than they are. I sat there for a long time, phone buzzing in my pocket like a nervous tick. I finally checked it. 16 messages. Jake. WTF man. Melinda said you bailed with no notice? Tasha. Heard what happened. Are you okay? Noah. Tell me this isn't true. You went behind her back? That one stopped me. Went behind her back. Like I'd stolen trade secrets or set fire to the server room. All I'd done was apply for a job, quietly, privately. But the phrasing made it clear. She'd spun her story fast. Probably walked into the bullpen with that solemn voice she reserved for client deaths and layoffs. Said I'd left the team. Made it sound like treason. The part that stung wasn't the lie. It was how quickly they believed it. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened the email that had come in during the walk. Subject: Excited to connect, Graybridge Partners. I read it twice, then a third time. They wanted me for a second interview. We're impressed with your operational strategies at Calleton, it said. We've seen your process breakdowns and employee training posts online, very aligned with how we do things here. The recruiter asked if I could meet the senior vice president for a final conversation. Final. No salary discussion, no hoops, just straight to final. And still, I didn't feel good. I should have. But it felt like being pulled from a sinking ship and realizing the people still on board had thrown you over on purpose. I sat on that bench until the sky turned charcoal. Thought about the time I covered for Melinda when she missed a meeting with the Armstrong team and blamed it on her calendar. About the dozens of weekends I worked while she vacationed in Cabo, the way I trained people who were promoted above me just because they drank with her nephew. Every maybe next quarter suddenly sounded like a dog whistle, like she'd never intended to reward loyalty, just mine it until it broke. Still, part of me wondered if I'd done something wrong, if I'd really betrayed her. The part of me trained to feel guilty for wanting more. I hated that it even crossed my mind. By the time I got home, Nina was curled up on the couch, laptop open, a cold cup of tea beside her. She stood when she saw my face. I didn't say anything. Just handed her my keycard. Her eyes narrowed. She fired you? Revoked my access mid-meeting. She shook her head, jaw tight. Unbelievable. I slumped into the couch. She said I betrayed her. Nina didn't respond. Just sat beside me and reached for my hand. I realized my fingers were still shaking. Later that night, I showered and sat at the kitchen table with a notepad. Not for work, just to get it out. I started listing everything I'd done over the last year that Melinda had taken credit for. Every initiative I'd spearheaded, every crisis I'd solved. The list took 3 pages. And then, I wrote down what I wanted. Real leadership, respect, clear growth, fair pay. Not approval, recognition. I brought that energy into the final interview with Graybridge the next morning. Wore the same suit. Didn't mention the firing. I talked about the logistics architecture I built from scratch. How I scaled team capacity without increasing headcount. I didn't flinch when they asked tough questions. I'd already lived tougher. An hour after the call, the recruiter rang me up. "We'd love to bring you on as Director of Strategic Ops," she said. "You'll report directly to the VP. Starting salary is $190 plus equity. Double what I made at Calaton." I thanked her, said I was excited. But when I hung up, the house was quiet. Nina was out. The fridge hummed. And I sat there in my kitchen, staring at my phone like I'd just lost something instead of won. Maybe it was the silence. No congratulations from old coworkers. No farewell drinks. Just the quiet kind of success that nobody claps for, because it wasn't supposed to happen. That night, I scrolled back through my texts. Half the people who'd leaned on me during their deadlines hadn't messaged since the day I was walked out. The ones who had, most of them just wanted to know if the gossip was true. So I deleted the thread. Let them believe what they wanted. I knew who I was, and soon, so would they. Graybridge didn't waste time. By my second day, I was already seated in a 9th-floor conference room overlooking the skyline I used to grind under. The view was cleaner here, sleeker. No chipped mugs or burned-out bulbs. Just glass, steel, and efficiency. And a whiteboard filled with acronyms I hadn't seen before. My nameplate still had the sticker on it. "Let's loop in Ryan," someone said. "He's got inside context on Calaton." I blinked. What context? The VP of M&A, sharp suit, sharper smile, tapped a digital slide on the screen. "Your former employer is on our acquisition roadmap. We've been circling them for 6 months. That non-disclosure you signed this morning, it's active now." I stared at the logo. Calaton Dynamics, Q4 target. It felt like spotting your ex's name on a wedding registry. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or brace for impact. "You okay?" the VP asked, half smirking. "Fine," I said, just surprised. I wasn't. Not really. Calaton had been bloated for years, papering cracks with jargon and temp hires. And if Graybridge was circling, that meant they'd already smelled blood. They asked if I'd sit in on the strategy calls, not as a whistleblower, just someone who knew the landscape. I agreed, keeping my tone measured, professional. But inside something stirred. Not revenge, not yet. Just the strange sensation of gravity shifting, like I'd fallen from the roof and landed behind the steering wheel. Over the next week, I fed the team small, precise bits of insight. Expect pushback from senior ops. There's a high sensitivity to outside directives. Middle management is top-heavy. There's a culture of over-titling to retain mediocre performers. The leadership style leans reactive. Big decisions come down to personal loyalty, not logic. I never said Melinda's name. I didn't need to. The profile painted itself. One night, after hours, I stayed late at the office. The place was quiet. The cleaning crew hadn't even started. I opened a new document, labeled it Leadership Instability Risks, Case Study, Internal Eyes Only, and wrote what I'd been holding back. It wasn't personal. It was tactical. I described a fictional executive, never named, who routinely denied employee advancement while rewarding proximity, who viewed ambition as disloyalty, who managed by fear and silence, cultivating a brittle loyalty that masked chronic turnover and suppressed innovation. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't vent. I just told the truth. Strategically. I sent the doc to our internal thread, tagging a few analysts, the VP, and a junior associate named Ethan, who had helped me pull some org charts. Then I packed up and left, feeling sharper than I had in months. The fallout came less than 12 hours later. I was sipping my first coffee when Ethan stormed into my office. Hey, weird thing. I think I screwed up. I looked up. Define screwed up. I added an old external contact to the shared doc thread by accident. Her name was in a cached autofill. Harper.m@callitOn. Something. I didn't think. My stomach dropped. Melinda. I opened the document. Someone outside Graybridge had viewed it at 2:17 a.m., and the access alert was active. For a second, neither of us spoke. She read it, I said. Ethan nodded, pale. I'm sorry. It's fine, I said quickly, though my pulse was ticking. It's not a breach. There's no name, no confidential data. Still, she's going to know it's about her. Let her. Ethan blinked. I didn't clarify. By noon, I'd received 6 internal messages, all from Graybridge senior staff. Can you confirm this case study's accuracy? Excellent analysis. Do you have more insight on the leadership structure? Please join the 3 p.m. strategy review. The memo was working. They didn't care who'd read it. They cared that it was right. But I couldn't stop picturing Melinda sitting at her desk, maybe still in that glass cage, staring at a document that diagnosed her leadership like a terminal illness, reading her own failure dressed up in corporate language, and knowing she couldn't argue it without confirming it. At 3 p.m., I joined the call. The VP nodded at me. Great work, Ryan. We've updated our integration playbook based on your insights. Legal's reviewing the leadership retention clauses. We may expedite executive offboarding post-acquisition. In plain terms, they were planning to cut the head off the snake. I muted my mic and sat back. Not out of smugness, but clarity. For 4 years, I tried to play by the rules, thinking loyalty would be reciprocated, thinking Melinda's approval meant something. But approval from the wrong person is just a leash. Now I was free. And I hadn't even raised my voice. I didn't burn the bridge. She set it on fire when she pushed me off it. All I did was light a clearer path for someone else to walk across. I was halfway through my second coffee when the email hit. Subject line: defamation and false claims, immediate legal review. It came from Melinda's personal account, not her executive one. A wall of text, no greeting, no punctuation, just fury wrapped in corporate phrasing. She called the memo a slanderous mischaracterization of a respected leader and demanded immediate identification of the author responsible for this coordinated character assassination. And then came the mistake. A paragraph meant to clear her name did the opposite. She described a fictional scenario from the memo, the exact anecdote about a denied promotion during a hiring freeze, then tried to refute it by explaining her rationale. When I delayed the compensation adjustment, it was based on full knowledge of the Armstrong account risk and the East Coast shift, decisions made under my authority. No one had named Armstrong, or the East Coast restructure, or the promotion timeline. But she had. By 9:47 a.m., the entire executive team at Caliton had seen the email. By 10:12, the board had scheduled an emergency call. By 10:41, I was watching it all from a glass-walled boardroom of my own, 3 blocks away. The irony wasn't lost on me. I scrolled through the internal Slack at Graybridge. One of the M&A analysts had screenshotted Melinda's message. Below it, someone had commented, "If it wasn't about her before, it sure is now." The dominoes fell fast. By noon, I was looped into a call with the VP of Strategy and 2 legal advisors. They'd received notice that 2 Calaton clients had formally requested updates on leadership continuity. Translation: they smelled smoke. The VP leaned back in his chair and said, "We're accelerating the timeline. You still interested in helping with the transition?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, but I have one condition." "Shoot." "I want to speak directly to the outgoing leadership team." He raised an eyebrow. "All of them?" "No," I said. "Just one." It was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "Granted." They scheduled the final meeting for Friday morning. Calaton's main office, same place I'd left from just weeks ago. I didn't tell Nina until the night before. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "You good with this?" I was. Not excited, not vindictive. Just ready. I wore a navy suit, one she'd always said brought out the storm in my eyes, took the elevator up to the 23rd floor, and felt nothing but breath in my lungs and calm in my chest. The receptionist gave me a confused look, then stood when the VP from Calaton came out to greet me. "This way," he said. No small talk. The office hadn't changed. Same cold lighting, same fake eucalyptus in the corner, same clear glass cage at the center. She was sitting inside it. Melinda didn't stand when I entered. Her hair was pulled into a tight knot, jaw set like stone. She didn't look shocked, just tired. I closed the door behind me and sat in the chair I'd once waited in, notebook in hand, back straight. This time she was the one across the desk. I was the one holding the script. The VP stayed silent at the door while I laid out the terms. "The board has approved your separation package," I said, sliding the papers forward. "Standard 2-year non-compete, health coverage for 12 months, and an NDA, the usual language." She didn't touch the papers, just stared at me. "You set this up," she whispered. "No," I said. "I told the truth. You set the rules. I just learned to play your game better than you did." Her lips curled into something between a scoff and a grimace. "You always wanted to be in charge." "No," I said again. "I wanted to be respected. I just stopped waiting for it." She finally looked down at the document, scanning the lines. Her fingers trembled slightly. Or maybe it was the light. I didn't care anymore. "You know this company will bleed after this," she muttered. "You think Graybridge can just absorb us without breaking something." I stood. If something breaks, it's because it wasn't built right to begin with. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't wait for a handshake. I walked out of the glass office, the same way I'd walked out weeks before. Quietly. On my own terms. Only this time, I wasn't carrying anything but closure. The halls were quieter than I remembered. I stepped into the old Calaton office for the last time as part of the transition team. Just a formality now. Half the cubicles were empty. The lights buzzed a little louder without bodies and chatter to mask the hum. Desks stood stripped, nameplates missing. The energy that once made the place pulse with too many Slack pings and too few lunch breaks was gone. Absorbed. That was the word Graybridge used, like the company had been swallowed whole and digested. I passed the break room where I'd once spent 30 silent lunches pretending to read reports. It still smelled faintly of burnt coffee and microwave leftovers. The vending machine had been unplugged. There was a dead fly inside the glass. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't need to. Some things don't need fireworks to be finished. The culture Melinda built, one of fear, disguised as structure, of control masked as leadership, was dissolving like ink in water. No dramatic collapse, just erosion, the kind of slow unraveling you only notice when it's already done. I turned the corner toward the elevator and there she was. Melinda. She didn't see me at first. Her hair was looser than I'd ever seen it, strands slipping from a messy twist at the nape of her neck. No heels today, just flats. She was holding a cardboard box with one arm, her coat folded on top, a framed photo of her with some long-forgotten client peeking out. Her badge was still clipped to her blouse, like a relic. She reached for the elevator button with her free hand. I didn't say anything, just slowed my step as we crossed paths. She finally looked up and saw me. Her expression didn't change. No smile, no nod, no attempt to explain. Just a flicker of recognition followed by that old instinct of looking through me. I gave her the smallest of nods. Not cold, just final. She looked away. That was it. That was the goodbye. No apology. No, I misjudged you. No, you were right. But I didn't need it. Some endings don't require sound. They're just understood. Back at Graybridge, things felt different. Better. Not because the walls were shinier or the kitchen had oat milk and kombucha, but because the people in charge listened. And more importantly, they saw. 2 months in, I was mentoring 2 new hires, Jared and Ellie, fresh out of grad school. Eager, smart, a little reckless. I liked them. One afternoon, Ellie stayed behind after a team debrief. She lingered near my desk with that nervous fidget people get when they're trying to ask something personal. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why'd you leave your last job? Everyone there seems to think you were kind of a big deal." I smiled. Not bitter, just a touch amused. "I left," I said, "because I finally realized what I was worth." She tilted her head. "And they didn't?" I shrugged. "They did. Eventually. Just too late to matter." She nodded slowly, as if filing it away for later, and left me to my quiet. I stayed late that evening, finishing up quarterly projections and reviewing a staffing model I'd once begged Melinda to adopt. It was being implemented now, at a better company, with better people. When I finally shut down my screen and stood to leave, the office was empty except for the janitor humming down the hall. I pulled on my coat, checked my phone, no messages, and stepped out into the cool evening air. The sun was dipping behind the buildings, casting gold and burnt orange across the streets. I didn't take the subway. I didn't call a car. I just walked. I passed a bar where I once watched coworkers celebrate a promotion I'd trained someone into. I passed the dry cleaner who still had a tie I'd meant to pick up 6 weeks ago. I passed the corner deli where Nina and I had once shared a silent breakfast the morning after Melinda's second, maybe next quarter. And for the first time in years, I wasn't walking off a bad day. I wasn't debriefing failure in my head. I wasn't carrying the invisible weight of someone else's approval. I was just walking. No noise, no fanfare. Just quiet, earned peace. And that, more than any victory speech or final confrontation, was the real revenge. Because Melinda would remember me as the guy who walked out without rage, who came back only to finish what she couldn't, who never raised his voice, but was heard louder than she ever imagined. And me? I'd remember her as a chapter I closed, one I never needed to reopen.